Welcome to the Serious Comedians podcast. With me today, I have Scottish comedian Andrew Sim, and he has been coming to Iceland quite a lot, doing a bunch of shows and lots of different things. I guess I would like to ask you to start out with, can you tell me a little bit where in Scotland you're from?
Originally, I'm from Aberdeenshire, a little small village called Torfins. But I also lived for quite a long time in a place called Lumfannon, which the nickname for Lumfannon is Lumpy Fanny. So started the serious
comedians.
Serious Comedians podcast. But yeah, it's in the northeast of Scotland. Yeah.
Okay, northeast. I imagine it's a sparsely populated area.
Yeah, a lot of inbreeding and cows,
We
sheep.
like that around Iceland.
I
as well.
know, and the Faroe Islands, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so but it's like proper countryside. So yeah,
Aberdeen is one of the biggest cities in Scotland.
It's not really. So you've got Glasgow's the biggest. I think it's about 1 million, and then Edinburgh, I think it's like about half that, and then I think Dundee is slightly bigger, but Aberdeen might be bigger. Who knows? So it's like the third.
Yeah.
But it's Aberdeen, the city, is not nice.
No.
I've never lived there, and so I can shit on it. It's awful, terrible people, awful.
You heard it here
They
first.
have no souls. They have
No souls?
No, I'm joking.
Oh.
It's just a very grey city. It's not very nice to be in. So
I'm glad you made it clear that you were kidding about the souls.
I mean,
They would have been very worried.
to be perfectly honest, I'm not kidding. But there's a lot of strippers in Aberdeen.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of stripping. Yeah. Stripping and oil
Is that the
workers.
main-
Stripping
like the main industry?
Yeah, stripping oil workers, but oil workers have been laid off quite a bit. So
The oil workers are stripping.
yeah, no, they are now stripping. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which is not what Aberdonians really wanted in the first place. They wanted women, which is so sexist, not allowing men.
Men can be sexy too.
Exactly, they can be very good stripping.
Especially oilers, I guess. Is that what they call them?
Yeah.
Oilers?
Oilers, yeah. They put some oil on them.
So you have an oiling industry.
Yes, so it was probably the biggest industry in Aberdeen, and it meant that Aberdeenshire became very, very rich. However, the oil is starting to run out, and everything's starting to go to shit. So
The oil wells. You're not making new ones. You're just emptying the old ones.
Yeah, pretty much, and but they didn't invest any of the money into Aberdeen. Not really. So
in everybody's pockets.
yeah, so Aberdeen has just not improved as a city. It hasn't culturally got better or progressed. So that's why I say it has no soul, because it's quite a dead grey city.
That kind of soul, yeah.
Yeah. But Aberdeenshire is lovely.
Okay, so that's the area surrounding, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It goes all the way up into the northeast, and then goes down to a border with Perth and Dundee and stuff.
I imagine it's very hilly.
Very hilly.
Foggy?
Foggy at times. Not as rainy. It's more rainy on the west coast. On the east coast, it's more wind.
Yeah.
There's never not wind.
Yeah. Yeah, same in Iceland and the Faroe Islands.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes when I've gone traveling, for the first day or two, I have this weird feeling where something's.
Yeah.
And I realize it's because there's no wind.
Yeah.
There's nothing blowing on me.
And it's actually when you realize how much you sweat when there's no wind, because it's just a constant sort of, oh yeah, that's quite nice. It's when you have no wind, you're just like, oh my God, I'm disgusting. It's just smelling so bad after a couple of days.
That's why Aberdeenians never smell sweat.
I know. We don't. We never sweat, just like Prince Andrew.
Even the Oilers.
We don't sweat.
Andrew. Maybe it's always just around the breeze.
I know. I sadly have the same name as him, but
Oh yeah, you do. I didn't even realize.
It's when you put Prince in front of it, it
changes it.
I would rather not compare myself to Prince Andrew at this point. Yeah, let's try and find
adopt that stage name.
No, I don't. Just welcome to the stage, Prince Andrew. Oh God!
Everybody gets real worried for a second.
Yeah.
This is just serious. Okay, I'm
Oh,
gonna
serious,
turn down
serious.
the humor.
Yeah, let's turn
I
down
made
the
a
humor.
joke. I'm sorry.
No.
Apologize.
It's when you mention Prince Andrew, we can't, Yeah.
No, and the intros I've done, like I hate when YouTube videos have intros. That's why I'm doing an intro. And the intro is basically, this is the podcast where comedians are serious for maybe the first time in their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to remember this is serious. And one thing I wanted to ask you, since you're talking about the north of Scotland, how big of a part of Scottish like cultural awareness are the Shetland Islands?
Quite big actually.
Yeah?
So you've got there's actually a comedian Marilyn Robertson that is from Shetland.
way.
She does a bunch of different gigs and does full like fringe shows. I'm gonna try and get her over to come and do the show.
Wow, I've never met anybody from there.
I know, and it's essentially she's kind of very much the only person that's like an advocate for Shetland and getting people to go over and stuff like that. But yeah, it's not somewhere I've been, and I do like small little islands that nobody really goes to and stuff. I've always wanted to go to different places and stuff. It's also when you start to realize the culture of Scotland, Shetland, Faroe Islands is probably quite similar, and then Iceland. All of the cooking is quite similar, so people cook with very poor ingredients because that's all you could get your hands on. So the meals are just very similar, if that makes sense. So potatoes, fish,
whatever meat you had nearby.
Exactly. A dead baby. Who knows?
Dead, preferably.
Yeah, preferably.
Yeah,
but
they wouldn't be very ethical to eat it alive.
Babies are pretty nice when you put them in like cold water first, and then you boil it. Yeah, it's kind of like a lobster. Yeah, like you just you get the real. Yeah,
baby animals are nice. That's all I know. Lamb, famously. Yeah, veal, all baby animals.
And technically, human babies
must be the most delicious.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just logic.
Yeah.
So if I had to eat a human, would eat a baby.
Eat a baby.
Yeah.
Also, they haven't had memories yet. Yeah. So
this is serious. This is not even a joke. If you think about it, like if you had to eat a human, wouldn't you want something delicious? It's not even a joke.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I just I could see myself looking into the camera with like menacing murder baby in my eyes, and I was like, no, I'm not okay with that.
Luckily, I don't think I have any viewers that are babies, so no, I don't think anybody's going to be worried.
Yeah, no, thank the Lord.
Yeah, but it's funny because when you mentioned that there was a comedian from Shetland,
yes,
I found myself being like, wow, I really want to meet her.
Yeah,
and I was like excited about it. Yeah, and then I realized, oh, this is what people mean when they are like, oh, you're from the Faroe Islands.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the thing is, you get, just by one person, you get a lot of information about that place. So it's like when you're watching a comedian, they have to explain the place, they have to explain little things that like is part of the culture. And honestly, I think that's just a fascinating way of learning about the world. Instead of in books or on like a fucking BuzzFeed article, it's so far like more interesting hearing someone go, oh yeah, there's all the good bits, but these are all the bad bits about where I'm from. Like I love that the best.
Yeah, man. Not to take any like light off you, but I'd really love to have her on the podcast.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, well, you know what? I'll just phone her up now.
Call her right now.
Yeah. But no, essentially we'll try to get her over, and then she can do this. Yeah, and you can chat. You can island each other.
We'll try. We'll have an island off.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would be. Put some ideas in the comments. If you have any idea what an island off is, let us know.
Yeah,
because we need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so because that's something about the Shetlands that I've wondered, because as a part of the Danish kingdom, Danish people don't really know much about the Faroe Islands. I think they know more about Greenland, mainly because it's on every map. Everybody's seen Greenland on the map.
It's huge, yeah.
And Shetland is also on every map. As a person with a country that's not on every map, I know these things. I notice these things, and for some reason, This is like this is like conspiracy level.
I honestly, I don't. I think it's because it's the UK. It's
Yeah.
still been part of the UK for
Right.
so long, but I'm pretty sure Shetland is not on every map. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
that
I'm
she's
sure-
even got a joke about it. But I'm not like I can't.
I'm sure that Shetland has some country that's their enemy
think
that
they've-
doesn't put it on every map.
I think they've got a better PR team.
They do. We like you're saying, oh, it's because they're part of the UK. We're the part of the DK,
No,
the Danish kingdom.
No
you
one
know?
cares about.
Apparently,
no one cares about
that
Denmark.
doesn't give you.
No one cares about
map
Denmark.
privileges.
Like full stop. No one cares about
No.
Denmark.
Yeah.
Why would
People care about Greenland, I guess. Maybe that.
I mean, they don't really. They
No.
don't really. Like
No, clearly not.
most people think Iceland's beautiful, and it's like, yeah, it's nice.
I would say people don't care enough about Greenland. People don't care enough about the Faroe Islands. People care too much about Denmark, honestly.
Yes, they care too much about Denmark.
The only reason Denmark's on the map is because Greenland's on the map. Because they have to put in brackets Denmark, and if
No, it's because it's such a massive. It's like a massive land mass.
yeah,
So-
Greenland is
Yeah. But
Yeah.
not Faroe Islands.
no. I check every map I see. I have a look. I have a peek.
Is this what you do on Sundays?
This
just
is
every
it's a
now.
compulsion.
It's a compulsion, just like
Checking
every
maps.
Yeah. Oh, I found another
Yeah. This is a funny story. So one time
about maps.
about maps.
Are you 100% sure? It's, okay.
I haven't. This is. I'm going to do this on stage probably because I just remember that this is a pretty funny story. I
Fantastic.
haven't.
Go for the funny story.
About maps.
Yes.
Everybody loves maps. Give us a comment if you love maps.
Don't.
So I was on a bus. I was going on a tour in Iceland, and they have a little brochure in the pocket in front of my seat. And I look at the map, and in this brochure, there's a map of the Nordic countries, like it zoomed in, and very obviously missing, not Shetland Islands. They were there.
No. Of course.
Faroe Islands.
Yeah.
And I sent an email to this company. Well, because I was sitting there on the bus for like 45 minutes anyway, so I just took out my phone and I'm going to let them know that they did it. They made a mistake.
Yeah.
I never heard back from them.
Yeah, of course you didn't. I knew that story wasn't going to end with, and now I have been invited to make the changes. No, I knew that would be just basic.
Since then, Faroe Islands was the biggest country on the map.
It's actually not the shape or the size of Faroe Islands.
No.
But we've got
For some
it there.
reason, they put in Egypt.
Yeah, it's crazy times.
Yeah, anyway, that's a tangent. So Scotland, I want to get into frame of mind of a Scottish person.
Yes,
and
go for it.
So you said Aberdeenshire,
Yes.
so that's the area. I like the word shire. It sounds
It's like the Hobbits.
very fancy. Sounds like
It's just a lot of farms. It's like
Farms?
it's a wealthy area, but like it's not English wealthy. So like there is a disparity of like I'm middle class. I will never try to be not like never try to put myself as like I'm of the working people. It's like no, I've always been middle class. But I'm Scottish middle class, and this is something Fern Brady talked about. It's like Scottish middle class means you had nice holidays growing up, but English middle class means you like your family owned 5 homes. So that's like the disparity of wealth that is like in the two countries. So I grew up never in a hard place, but I also was taught not to be a cunt.
good advice.
Which is always
for all the Prince Andrews out there.
I know, and I don't always succeed, but I try my best.
And I know that British people from the other part of Great Britain, they talk about posh accents.
Yes.
And I kind of can tell what a posh accent is, but I don't know what a posh Scottish accent.
So,
do you have a posh accent?
Yeah, so most likely, like people would say I sound posh, or sometimes they say that I sound American because I don't sound where I'm from. But that's honestly, I've just spoken like that for my whole life, and it's like a combination of my parents always saying, don't speak this way because you won't get a job if you speak this. And but then with my brother, he's able to go in and out of he's able to go from business mode to like Tjuchter. So Tjuchter is like the word you use for a person from the countryside, but primarily from Aberdeenshire, a tutor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so you
I
have
have
less of an accent.
I have less of an accent. That's why everyone can understand me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is really useful for traveling to other countries, and Americans are like, I can understand you. My God, like I speak to Scottish people all the time. I don't know. It's like, yeah, because you don't listen to them. You're just an arsehole.
Talk over them if you're American.
So
probably.
I just kind of go, yeah, no, absolutely. I've tried my best to, it's quite it's a weird thing because I'm not proud of it, and I'm not shitting on my own accent. It's more just like, I hate it when people demean certain accents and they say, oh, it's very rough and it's very this. And it was like, oh, fuck, people speak the way they speak. Just listen to what they're saying. The only time you can complain is if people are mumbling or they're speaking too fast. But their accent's not the problem. It's you.
Yeah, generally.
Generally.
Yeah, generally it's me.
Generally, it's just yeah.
Serious podcast.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I made a joke.
Yeah.
Okay, and you are a traveling comedian.
Yes.
You travel here.
Mm-hmm.
And when did you realize or decide that you were going to be a comedian?
It was probably I really wanted to have a go at doing comedy, and the first time I did it was at secondary school when I was 15, I think it was, and it was the talent show, and so I did like 5 minutes, and that was my first ever gig in front of, I think, something like 120 people, all from different age groups. So if I had died on my ass, that would have been my social life just done. But what happened was the opposite. It was so good that everyone started speaking to me. And I think even at the age of 15, I realized how fickle people were. Because they didn't like me before. But because I have this talent, I now have worth. And I just went, oh, that's really quite awful. It felt good for a little bit to be that sort of...
Yeah.
But it really messes with your head. And so anyone I never became famous or anything, and I see people like a young age getting famous, and I go, it just messes with their head. Really is not comfortable, and it's usually the public and people who don't really understand how scary it is to be known by everyone. And so I was known throughout the school by everyone. So that meant that I was getting a lot of adoration, but also a lot of like people would then start bullying me because of it. So it was very strange, and
you become a target.
Yeah, massively so. And so, but I started doing, performances wherever I could at school and stuff. And then by the age of 17, I was doing gigs out in the world at proper stand-up gigs, and that's when I started having my first deaths and really starting to realize I'm not that good at this. I understand how to do this, and I don't understand how to write this, and it's just built from there, really.
But if you decide to do stand-up in a comedy show or in a talent competition, then you must have had an interest in it before that.
Massively so. So, like, I think I just watched a lot of comedy, and I'd watch Whose Line Is It Anyway? Like, even looking back on it now, it's like the skill level that I now know is behind that is unbelievable. Like, I see improv done by certain people, and I go, yeah, great, that's nice, that's a nice technique and stuff. But Whose Line Is It Anyway? You couldn't really see the techniques because they were just that solid and that flowing. So I learned a lot from that. I watched Billy Connolly, Jimmy Carr, Lee Evans. That was kind of the people that it's kind of, those are three very different styles of comedy, and I loved all of it. It was just like Jimmy Carr was just the really dark one-liners. Lee Evans, the energy of like trying to really do a bit, like really act out the bit. And then Billy Connolly having the storytelling of someone who's just, you're sitting in a bar, you're sitting in a pub, and you're really just taking in what they're saying. So I was just fascinated by how that encapsulated, like, really brought people in. And so I was totally sold on it. Yeah.
So you were really attracted to comedic stuff before, like you
Massively
wanted
so.
to watch.
And I think
comedians.
that was in my family. So we would sit in the car and listen to Billy Connolly on tape, or well, it was probably a CD, but at that point. But like we would listen to just him doing these incredible shows that now, looking back on it, it was super inappropriate for how young I was listening to it, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And it was something I share a really close bond with my brother, and also was my dad as well, who's sadly just recently passed away. And comedy in our family became such a major thing, especially when they found out that they wanted me to do it. So that was one of the biggest things of... they already knew what the story was going to be. They already knew the journey of a comedian. They already knew how hard it was going to be. And they said, "Are you up for this?" And I was like, "Yeah, no." And it was like, "No. Do you really understand how difficult it's going to be?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want this. I don't want, like, I did acting training, and my dad was always like, 'You're a great actor. You need to do more of that.' And it's something I will be slowly getting back into over the next few years, but I just had no interest being a working actor. Being a puppet for other people's words, had no interest. But stand up, where you get to decide what you say or do on any night.
Yeah.
I liked that concept.
Yeah, being a comedian, a stand-up comedian particularly, you have control over everything.
Yeah.
So that's like,
if you fuck up, it's your problem. I'm getting to the point now I don't really die ever. I just have a bit of a shitty gig. And just recently, I think it wasn't this time, but it was the time before, I think I'd lost Linda's, no, I think it was like 2 months ago, but I'd lost Linda's like stuff. I'd lost all my clothes.
One of his characters.
One of my characters.
Does on stage.
She's a lot of fun. But essentially, I lost all my clothes, and so I had to get a costume. And I was doing this gig for Dan Zerin, and at Gerkeren, and it was such a shit show. Like the audience were so bad, and it was such a great lineup, and every comedian ate shit. And it was so fascinating being in that mode again of, oh my God, like I used to do this all the time and thinking I did well, but I knew I had fucked up. Like I came on with the wrong energy. I wasn't, I was too bullshit. I was too insulting towards the audience. And so all these mistakes are still there, even if you get better. It's just that you've kind of learned, you've learned out of it, but they will come back in a vengeance if you're insecure or you're not in a good place. So I love the fact that it can go so wrong so quickly, and that's the anxiety, the edge, the adrenaline that you get coming through.
Yeah, and before you doing a gig or you go on stage somewhere, you're wondering like what's this crowd like? How people are gonna react and yeah, that's an exciting part of the whole thing is you have a completely new audience.
Yeah,
and they will react in their own way.
Mm-hmm. No, entirely.
So you grew up with people loving comedy.
Yes,
they introduced you to it, and you were clearly attracted to it as well. And then when you were 15, you decided to do 5 minutes.
Yes,
in front of your class of your schoolmates.
No, not class. The whole school.
Yeah.
And this was teachers, and the talent show at Boyne Academy was actually it was part of a charity called Children in Need. So it's a UK charity for helping people who are like carers, who are young carers and stuff like that. And it would be a talent show all week. Mm-hmm. So you would do like heats from Monday to Thursday, and then on the Friday, everyone's dressed up in Children in Need costume and stuff, and that's the final. And so it was like properly an institution at the school. And so to do stand-up, everyone was like, what are you going to do? We don't think you're funny. Like, it was so much, like...
So you didn't already have a reputation as a funny guy or anything
No,
like that?
I thought I did. And then it was, you know, when you have this idea of who you are, and then that's just the carpet is just taken from under you, and you just go, oh my God, the rug's just, It was essentially, I thought I was funny, but all the funny comments or class clown moments I had, I never said out loud, or I only like whispered it to a mate. I wouldn't, you know, say it very loudly. So it essentially, I had this reputation of just being a very quiet person, because I was just filled with anxiety. I was very depressed, all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I did it, it was teachers that took me aside and went, that was so surprising. We did not expect that to come from you. We thought that you were, we just thought you were very quiet and you had a cheeky smile. But now we realize you're making fun of us all the time. So that was when it was just realizing, oh, I need to change who I was, and be a bit more open, I think.
Mm-hmm. I had a similar experience where when I was about 20, I told a friend that I would really like to do stand-up comedy, and they went, I never really heard you make any jokes. I was like a stab in the heart.
Yeah, it's not a nice feeling.
That turtle went right back into that shell.
Yeah.
So it took me 10 years to get back out of the shell.
It's a weird thing because I just ignored people. And I've always continued to ignore people's advice, which is why I'm not very successful. It's like, you know, if you change parts of yourself as a stand-up or an actor or anyone in the biz, in show business, if you start changing yourself to fit, you're gonna end up in a dead end at some point. You can not change and learn how to develop, you know, positive things, barriers, boundaries, so that people don't fuck with you. And the journey just takes longer. And now I'm in a position where I'm doing putting on regular shows in Iceland. I'm now the festival director for the Reykjavik Fringe. And all these things have happened just recently, but it's been about 10 years in the making. If I had rushed it, I would have been on British television, pretty sharpish. I wouldn't have been liked by anyone. And I would have 100% killed myself by the time I was like 25. And that's what I could have done. But what I did was I just went, I'm not that good. And I thought I was saying that because I was depressed and stuff. But now looking back on it and now looking at what I do now, no, I was not good. And I shouldn't have been pushed forward. But people were trying to mold who I was so that I would get on television and then I would be their success story and stuff. And a lot of shit like that happens a lot. And it happens a lot in Scotland as well. Because you have two phenomenal comedians, Daniel Sloss and Kevin Bridges. And they were like fucking, you know, I think Daniel Sloss was 17 when he got on television. And then Kevin Bridges, he was like 20 when he hit the mega, you know. So the two of them then influenced a lot of the comedy scene in Scotland, basically saying, oh, we need to make another. We need to make another. And there's so much pressure on young comics to hit that bar instead of just developing their own style. So it's an interesting thing. I think in the UK there's a lot of there's the ups and downs of that. You know?
To develop into a really good comedian, that it doesn't take 1 or 2 or 3 years. It takes 10 years.
Massively so.
Yeah.
And now the stuff that I see those two comics doing now, you know, I think it's probably 10, 15 years now down the line. Their stuff is phenomenal because they kind of took themselves out of the spotlight when they realized, actually, this is not... I want to get better at comedy. I don't want to be this, like the golden boy. You know?
Yeah, and I guess if you go into comedy, let's say you're 17, that kind of frames your, like, how people see you or what kind of comedian people think you are. And
it frames you. And that's what really messed me up with comedy, is that I was 17, 18, fucking all this optimism and ambition and all that shit. And I was just ground down by bitter comics who just really didn't want me to continue and succeed. And so when you're surrounded by that,
So the comedy scene in Scotland?
oh yeah, but like only by certain people. It's not everyone in the comedy scene in Scotland. Like there's some of the nicest people you ever meet, and then you just have certain people that they do kind of take a bit of joy of putting you down. So I realized that I try not to surround myself in that anymore, and not being around any comedy scene and actually just working with other people of different genres like burlesque, pole, musicians. That's the stuff I love, because then the comedy becomes almost just like a light relief after you've heard a beautiful piece of music, or you've seen a wonderfully sexy, beautiful performer do a burlesque strip. It is the contrast for an audience is fascinating, and I've been developing that with like Cabaret Kiki. I'm now running at the only queer bar in Iceland, and essentially it's me hosting, but it's all these queer acts doing different genres. But then you have Alternative Assembly, which is Linda, and that's like the darker stuff that's at Gerkeren. So it's I just really love putting together two people from different genres, but they're very good at what they do, and that's it. You know, they
making a show.
And they get to know each other. Like now, the comedy scene in Iceland and the burlesque scene in Iceland now know each other. So they book each other for each other's shows, and it's like that's all it needed to be, just contact. People just needed to know about each other, and so yeah, I kind of want to take that format and take it around the world and do all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
And you didn't want to go this route of trying to get on TV as soon as possible?
No, I think probably for a while that was what was in my head. And
that you wanted to do that?
Yeah, and I think it's mostly so that you could then sell tickets and do whatever you want. But then I realized the cost of that. And also the fact that I wasn't good enough. I was also depressed, so I couldn't actually physically get on television, because no television person wants to look at a depressed person and go, I'm going to put you on television. It's like they want to, it's like, hey, let's be less negative. And then I'm like, fuck off. And now that I've dealt with my depression, dealt with the anxiety, I'm at the point where people are looking at me going, oh, you could do this and you could do that. And I was like, yeah, that's grand if I want to. It's my decision now.
Yeah. For some comics, the goal, the end goal is to be on TV or Netflix or something, and that would give them some. They imagine that would give them some sense of accomplishment.
And it will for 2 days, and then it's back to hating yourself. It's like, I think Jerry Seinfeld said the goal is to end up in Vegas and do shows every week and making millions from it. And I'm like, no, Jerry, no one wants that other than you, because you're a sociopath. Like he's got coldness in his eyes that but it's
sounds very boring.
Yeah, very boring, but very him. Because of the fact that he basically wants Elvis's life. I'm like, why would you want that? Like, Elvis died because of this, and it's like it's so twisted. But for myself, it's like, no, I just want to travel the world doing gigs wherever I can.
Yeah.
And setting up nights, so I get to know the local scene. So like now I know the local scene of Iceland. That's amazing. I don't know as many musicians, and so I'm slowly asking people, hey, do you know some musicians? Do you know? And then slowly but surely I'm getting these contacts, and so it's amazing, because I get all of this creative energy. And people are just grateful that I've booked them on the show, but I'm also making enough to be able to pay them, and it's just it's a lovely thing.
So Jerry wants to end up. His dream is Las Vegas. And some people want to be on Night at the Apollo or something.
Yes.
What is it for you? Where do you want to end up?
For me, for so long I had I want to end up here, I want to be able to do this, I want to be able to be an actor, I want to be in a Hollywood movie, all these kinds of very lofty ambitions. And now I'm just like, I don't want any of it. I want to take every year and decide, okay, I want to do this now. This seems like a good decision. And like, I'm setting up gigs here, so I get to come back to Iceland. I get to develop real friendships with people in this country, and that's wonderful. Because for a while I was just coming over and it was like a holiday, and so I'd drink so much, and I would get so depressed by the end of the week because I would have to leave again. But now that I just don't do that. Yeah, I'll drink from time to time, but like, I'm not getting on it and that's the end goal and, pass out from the drink. It's actually to go, oh no, I want these experiences with these friends. I get to chat with them about life and about what I want to do next. And it's lovely because then I then say, all right, see you next month. It's like I don't have to wait 6 months until I see all these wonderful people again. And it's really funny coming back now and they're like, all right, yeah, hug. Yeah, it's not as warm as it used to be because, yeah, we saw you last month. So, but I want that. I want there to be that regular dose of love like that I get from Icelandic people and just people who live in Iceland, because it's a very slow lifestyle. So people really take the time to go, oh yeah, we will meet up with you. In Britain, it's like, can we meet up? Oh, 2 weeks from now, maybe. And so if you're depressed or you're in a bad place, it's not good for you.
No.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're saying that your end goal is basically to have adventures.
Yeah, adventures and
meeting new people who are creative in like really cool ways and seeing how people can be good at stuff that you couldn't even imagine. How like
it's pretty much it. Because I think I lived in New York for 3 months. One of the biggest mistakes of my life. Just awful time.
When was that?
That was in 2017, in winter.
How old were you?
I was, I think, 21, 22, probably 22, maybe going into 23, but awful time.
Winter in New York.
I was doing open mics.
Yeah, so that you were going to go there to work as a comedian or work on
Yeah,
yourself.
and when you realize open mics are not gigs.
Yeah.
They are horrible, horrible experiences. So, especially in New York, where everyone is sad and depressed, chronically in a state of trauma, because New York as a city is traumatic. Like you're walking down the street, someone will get run over. And a lot of people, or you're on the subway, and a homeless guy just gets his dick out and starts masturbating towards a lady, and you go, oh my God, what is happening? But you then become desensitized to it. So the jokes that some New York comics would do, I go, what the fuck did you just say? But like, they're so desensitized to trauma and anything that's going on, they'll say whatever comes out their mouth, and they think it's funny, and the whole room just goes, shut the fuck up. And the level of racism and segregation, like the areas and stuff, it's like they made segregation illegal, they just didn't stop it. So it just is this very, very strange environment. Like I think the first open mic I went to, I sat by these two guys, and I start chatting to them, and they start giving me weird looks, and then I realized, oh, these are two black dudes, and I'm not meant to sit with them because I'm a weird, young white comic. I should be sitting with all the other white comics, and I found that so strange. It was a very weird experience, but like now I've been invited to go and do a gig in New York at a proper professional show at the Slipper Room, and they said, yeah, just let us know when you're coming over and we'll try and get you like a gig, or we'll see if there's availability and stuff. And I'm like, that's mental. That, all those years ago, like probably like 5-6 years ago, I was in such a bad place that I couldn't even get out the door. Sometimes I just not leave the room I was in. And I would just be depressed and angry and sad and crying. It was horrible. And now I'm at a point where I would go over for a week and be able to perform in one of the biggest venues in New York, or alternative venues in New York. And it's showing that even when you're at your really the worst point of your life, there's always, if you just keep going and you just ignore all of the shit that's around you, eventually it just starts to heal and everything just starts to align. And that's what's been happening with me. And it feels good. It feels nice.
Yeah, you gotta keep working on something.
Yeah.
Gotta keep working on something, and you'll get good at it eventually, and people will start appreciating it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's so you've been to New York and you didn't like that. And how did you get connected to Iceland?
So Iceland was on the way to New York. So that's probably why I mentioned it. It's essentially, I was invited to come here to do a Scottish comedians and Icelandic comedians doing like a bit of an exchange. And we would perform together and we'd do it at different venues. And one of the first ever gigs I did was at the uni, like the university bar downstairs, which is a terrible venue. But I performed at it, did well, and then the next night I was at Gurkarin performing there. And so it was this very, very strange experience coming to Iceland for a week, having the time of my life. And then I went to New York for 3 months, and I wish I'd stayed in Iceland. But what's interesting is, what I've taken from it is that New York and Iceland are two like almost complete opposites of each other. Iceland, there's nothing here. And that's why it's great. In New York, there's everything and everyone. And that's kind of why it's a little bit shit. When you're, as a tourist destination, fantastic. But when you're there, living there, it drains you. Obviously there'll be times when you'll have lovely moments, amazing things will happen. You're like, oh, I love being in New York. But about 90% of the time, you are killing yourself because you're working so hard, you're working very late. You're just constantly on the edge of like, oh God, I've got to do this. And the anxiety goes up, the depression goes up. It's all these things that you basically forget to look after yourself because it's New York. It's crazy. It's, and I think unless you're rich or you have a lot of money, you can't enjoy New York because you're just the bottom of the heap. Mm. But when it comes to Iceland, you can enjoy it, even though everyone talks about how expensive it is and things like that, but you can get by. You can enjoy it and still have a quality of life. So I just love it here. And I think it's the people that I keep coming back for. It's not the beautiful countryside. It's like, yeah, it's very nice. It's not as beautiful as Scotland. It's just not. I agree. It's very nice. And there's certain places that you go to, and it's like, oh my God, this is the most amazing experience. But what Iceland always forgets is the landscape. Like the tourist board is so shit sometimes in Iceland. They're like, look at all the mountains, look at all the things. That's not the bit that people experience because they can only see one or two of those locations. It's the people of Iceland. They are the ones that you get weirdly drunk with. You go to a weird show, you see a crazy angry lady on stage called Linda screaming at you. You experience the nightlife, you experience the crazy chats with these Viking men and women, and it's this very strange thing that is kind of missing that from the brochure. And I always tell comedians or performers that I'm inviting over, it's like, yeah, go out to the countryside if you want. That's up to you. But the thing that you really need to connect with is the people. They just have a lot of warmth and a lot of kindness. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And so you came to Iceland for the first time on your way to America.
Yes.
How did you end up staying connected to Iceland?
So essentially, I made really good friends, like just immediately. And I think what happened was I came back because I think they opened the Secret Cellar, but I might have come back before that. And it was also because I had friends who I'd developed a friendship with in Edinburgh, Ingeborg and Helge. And it's fascinating it's sort of like you come back to an island, and in my head, because of my bad experience of New York, immediately I was just like, it's not going to be as good. I'm not going to have as much fun. I'm going to walk away from this experience. It's like, okay, I've done Iceland. I came back and I had the best week of my life, because I think it was when Secret Cellar had just opened, and I said, hey, can I get some gigs? Like, you know, I came ages ago. I was just wondering if it would be okay if I did a gig. And they were like, oh, we'll put you on every night of the week. And at that point, I was just a comedian wanting to gig, and I was getting rejected by pretty much every gig in Scotland or like down south, and it's tough getting gigs in the UK if you're new. And so to be able to just gig for the whole week and have fun, I was just, and then they were like, oh yeah, and also we'll give you half price on all the drink, like the booze. And I was like, oh my God, like I have struck a gold mine. And so I was drinking, and then it's like, oh, and then we also have karaoke after the show. I'm like, what? So the party doesn't stop? And it's like, so I was on this high, drinking karaoke. And a lot of the time was the only time I ever got to have sex as well, because Icelandic women are very forward. And so I was, but like in a really nice way, in a sort of just like the end of the night comes, and I would always just be standing, you know, in the UK, just like, all right, better go home alone then. And then that's what I do. And it is in Iceland, it was just a woman would always go, hey, do you want to have sex? And I go, yes, I do. That sounds lovely. And then it's just like, it was just so simple. But I was like, well, of course this is a thing, because it's a fucking island. You can't mess around. You can't play games. It's like, no, I want sex now. I want warmth and comfort. Please give it to me. And I'm like, great, lovely. So it was just a wonderful experience. And then I think I would keep coming back for that. Just the sex. And but no, it was coming back for the gigs, because even though the gigs weren't run professionally at that point, I just loved being there. I loved performing. It is nice being a big fish in a small pond. It was nice. But now I'm in the position where I can actually create like I can make the pond bigger. Like I don't want it to be that the gigs get worse over time in Iceland. No, I want them to get better. I want international acts to come here and have a wonderful time. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for.
So you just got this connection to Iceland, and you keep coming back now. And the reason that you're going back and forth, is that because you can't get a visa, or?
Yes, so because of Brexit, I can't get a work visa. Yeah. Before Brexit, it was the same as the rest of Europe. You just turn up, you get you get like insurance, like and you get your Kenatella or whatever it is that you get, and then you work. Mm-hmm. That's it. There's no visa process and all that. But now that I'm not part of it, it's a visa process of about 3 months that you have to go through and all that kind of stuff. During the summer this year, next year, I'll probably be here, because I'll have to be here for the full time, because I'm running the Reykjavik Fringe. Mm-hmm. However, I actually like going back and forth, because I'm not spending all my money in Iceland. I get to make some of the money, take it back, go to a place, go back to the UK where it's not as expensive as Iceland. It means I can have an all right sort of get on with my life, and then I come back next month. And I actually think it's a really good way of keeping myself like in that mode of, no, I'm not stuck in one place. I'm jumping from, and I don't like the flying per se. I just like getting on a plane. I like being able to go, all right, this is my job. This is what I do.
New adventure.
It's nice. But I want to set up gigs all around. So I want to be able to set up a company that would be an events company that I can travel around Europe, so that I would be able to apply to certain visas and through this company, so that I'm allowed to do that. And then it wouldn't be a personal visa, it would be through this company. Mm-hmm. I really want to set a gig up in Gothenburg. I did the Gothenburg Fringe, really like the people there. Don't like Swedish people, but you don't really need, you don't really need to deal with them.
You don't hear that very often.
I know. It's very, very worrying.
You didn't have a good time in Sweden?
No. I had a great time in Sweden. I just had a very weird feeling the whole week I was there. And then at the end of the week, they had an election and they voted in basically the brown shirts, like Nazis.
Oh.
They're basically, yeah, their Nazi party was a part of their got into government. And I went, oh, that's it.
Oh.
That it's that the Nazi sympathizers from history, because the Swedish were willing to switch sides. I don't know. Yeah. They were like, oh, which way is this war going? Oh, we might join Hitler. Who knows? We are his wet dream. The blonde and blue-eyed, and it's actually the people who live in Sweden that are not Swedish. I like them.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't like Swedish people very much.
No, I met a few nice ones.
A few.
Yes.
Handful.
But as audience members, quite difficult.
Oh.
They're very, like, there's just a kind of like, they do the smile, and it's like through gritted teeth, and they don't go ha ha ha.
Let loose.
Yeah. Icelandic people have ugly laughs, and I love it. Like, a good ugly laugh can get like another 3-4 people around you laughing. So it's like, I love it. Yeah.
That's the real reason you like Iceland.
Yeah. Well, it's also because Icelandic people are the ugly Nordics. Like, out of all of, they are, right? But that's also why I trust them. I don't trust beautiful people. I don't trust people who have like gorgeous, like everything's like perfect. It doesn't mean Icelandic people aren't beautiful or can't be beautiful or that they're all ugly. It's just that they don't have this weird genetic freak sort of thing of like everyone is gorgeous, everyone looks amazing, everyone has been bred perfectly. It's like Iceland's like, oh no, they've been breeding with their cousins for fucking hundreds of years, and it shows. It shows.
Swedish people are Nazis and Icelandic people are ugly.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I love them. Scottish people are quite ugly as well, and so are like Irish people. Well, Irish people they've done a lot more to deal with that. Scottish people are still quite ugly.
I saw an article on the internet, so it must be true, where supposedly it was a poll where they asked people from all around Europe, what's the ugliest country?
Yes.
And you know what they picked?
The UK.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. No, but that is very true, because it's we've always been very cautious of foreigners, like throughout history. We've always been like, keep them over there, all that kind of, which means we didn't fuck them. And we didn't breed with them.
Should have been.
And we really should have been. And you look at like a French person, and if you look through their genealogy, it's like, there's Italians on this side, there's some Austrian on this side. We were having a good time. And so like they look gorgeous because they're just a combination of all these different of these different cultures and these different people. But yeah, UK is no. But for some reason though, Scottish men, I don't think it's the same for Scottish women, but Scottish men have a huge appeal for like around the world and through Europe and stuff. And I every now and again I'll go to a different country and immediately I'm told about this by a very eager person, whether male or female. And they're like, I've always had a thing for Scottish men. And just like, okay.
It's very manly. Is it the skirts?
It could be, it could be the kilts.
The kilts,
the kilts.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
How dare you? It is a skirt. But it's a very strange thing, the kilt, because we don't wear kilts unless it's like a formal occasion, usually a wedding. And like it's a very strange thing because I'm always in my head going, I look better in a suit. I look better in a suit. And then I put on a kilt and it's like, oh no, I look great. It's like a real, I don't know what it is. It's just
women around the world can't be lying.
Oh yeah, but
I remember another thing from QI where they said that that the most reassuring, or this was about airline pilots, and
yes.
People were asked how do you want your airline pilot to look?
Yes.
People wanted a beard.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, that was more comforting.
Yeah.
And people wanted a Scottish accent.
A Scottish accent. That's interesting.
If I remember correctly, Stephen Fry, if you're watching, you can correct me if you want.
It's probably, for me, it's probably like a quite similar to my accent. It's probably not a Glaswegian accent. It's probably quite a, it's like, because the Glaswegian accent is quite aggressive. Yeah. But mine is quite, hello everyone. Well,
yes.
I do understand that, but I wouldn't be more reassured. I'd be more scared. Because I would go like, I know a guy who sounds like that and I don't trust him, you know. But like if you hear like a posh English accent, I go, yeah, absolutely, that's what it's meant to sound. Let him
fly the plane.
Icelandic accent's also quite disturbing as well, because I'm like, I think I've drank with that guy. In Reykjavik, I'm not comfortable with this. Yeah.
One funny thing about Icelandic accents is that people generally they can't tell the difference between a W and a V.
All right, okay.
They'll say a Viking,
Viking,
and Vine. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they say that, but I've heard people say Viking all the time.
Viking. Sounds like a snack. Like a
Viking?
Yeah, a Viking. Like you just dip the Viking into a little bit of barbecue sauce, and then you just
best with barbecue sauce.
Yeah. So the Viking, it's always best if it's crunchy, you know. Mm-hmm. It's
they're best if they're pretty hard.
Absolutely. Yes. No. Always. Serious podcast.
Serious podcast. I didn't just make. No, I'm not even.
No.
That wasn't a joke.
No joke here.
No, just talking about the delicious. Vikings with... Yeah. Speaking of Viking wangs...
Yes.
Did you play any video games when you were younger?
Yes, a lot. Yeah. So that's...
Did you play The Sims?
Yes, I did.
Did?
Yes, of course I did. Yeah. Okay. Of course I did.
Lovisa?
Lovisa. I did actually have more expansion packs than you, so go fuck yourself. Yeah. Absolutely.
So a friend of ours, a comedian called Lovisa Laura, I let the world know on my Instagrams that I was going to ask Andrew Sim about whether he played The Sims.
Yes.
She was not happy about that. She said that it's the worst joke ever.
Yeah, well, the worst one for me is SIM card.
SIM card? That's worse than The Sims.
Yeah, because I would be called SIM card at school, and every person that did that, I would get angry at. Yeah.
SIM card.
I would have to get over it, but yeah, essentially it's.
So.
Also, I was I'm still quite freckly, but like I was really, really freckled, and essentially someone will start counting my freckles, and that would piss me off as well.
I remember my impression, from movies and TV shows, is like they gave me the impression that British schools have a lot of bullying.
Yeah, no, there
British
is.
People are always talking about, like British comedians and stuff. They're always talking about how they were bullied and stuff.
Yeah, so bullying's really prevalent in British schools, but it's interesting because I think when my brother was at school, he's like 7 years older, it was all violence. Like, pretty much. Like, yeah, there was probably some mental sort of, like, fucking with people and stuff. But it was, there was it was more a violent thing. When it was my year, our generation, it was a generation divide of, like, there was less violence. It was more just bringing people down, like, really messing with them, games and all mental sort of stuff. And that was because of social media was born and then molded our secondary experience. We started with like things like Bebo and MySpace and stuff, and then by the end of it was Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, I was at this point where it was just crazy, and then I'm thinking like, what's happening with the next generation where it's just like Instagram and Twitter, and these are old things now. It's like, what the fuck? Like, that must mold you into something, like TikTok and Snap, like so many things that it's crazy how that is molding people. And it really did mold like my time at school. Yeah. Because bullying became so savage and so hurtful and disgusting. And then you don't really get over it until you're like out in the real world. And bullying becomes funny.
You mentioned You mentioned also how there were some people in the Scottish comedy community that were nasty to you. Was that
it's
bullying? What was
no,
going on there?
yeah. It was to a certain extent, but like I'm at the point now that I've got to let go of all that, because there's no point of hammering it home and going, oh, I feel bitter about this. And like, people could see I was annoyed and angry every time that they made comments or did things. And so now,
What kind of comments or what
well,
were they doing?
it's trying to bring me down, of like just always labeling what I did as not really comedy, or saying that mine was too theatrical, or and it was just, it's a kind of thing that happens in British comedy, where there's the purists that do just jokes and just crowd work, and they don't like anything else. And it's like, yeah, okay, you're wrong, but okay. Like, I'm someone who appreciates both. Like, I love all comedy if it's good. If you think that the form can only take this version, fuck off. Like, like, I've seen some of the best comedians in the world who are so alternative, so different, and then I'll see a comedian who just does jokes, and I'll go, that's phenomenal, because their jokes are good, not because they've written it the correct way.
Yeah.
It's it's people trying to control others' expressions, like expression in art forms. I find very frustrating. So yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean, because you can approach stand-up comedy in many different ways, and the let's say the stereotype of stand-up comedy, that's just set up punchline, set up punchline, set up punchline, where you're just having quick jokes.
Yeah.
And then you can have storytelling, and then there's how animated you are, how active are you on stage, how do you what do you do, and some people get off the stage and walk around the crowd, and they're doing like the kind of putting a lot of movement into it. So and then there's people who do characters.
Yes. Yeah.
Like yourself.
Yeah, and so it's a weird thing, because character comedy is very much looked down upon in Britain. But it's funny, because I do Linda at certain comedy clubs, and it's hilarious, because if the comedians are not up for it, and they're not really keen on the character, or they're not keen on me, they'll make it known, and they give a bad atmosphere if they're hosting, and they bring Linda onto a bit of a weird reception. But when the comedian is totally on board with Linda, I have a great time. It's a really strange thing, and I don't get it anywhere else. It's like when I perform here, people love Linda. When I performed in Gothenburg, they loved Linda. Like, I've performed in different places, and it's just been great. And then British comedy, it's a lot of people, they're kind of gatekeepers of what is acceptable and what is not. And so that's kind of why I gig far less in the UK now. And I gig at certain places. I like Manchester. Weirdly enough, I really like performing in Liverpool, and they can be quite gatekeepers when it comes to music and comedy and stuff. But I always do very well in Liverpool, because I'm just grateful there's a massive crowd, and it's really fun to play. But if you don't do well in Liverpool, they'll let you know. the tutting and the moaning and they will just heckle you as well, and they sometimes will be funnier than you. So you gotta deal with that and be able to rise above it. Yeah.
This thing about how different places react to different types of stand-up. Because the stand-up comedy in the Nordic countries, Iceland and all the other ones, it's brand new. There's no history. There's no set culture. There's no, everybody is essentially doing something new.
And that's kind of why it's great, because essentially it's obviously that means that the comedy's not going to be as high quality as compared to what sometimes you'll see it in the UK, because people are trained like fucking...
Yeah, we don't have 500 people who've done it for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's this... but then in the UK, you've got you've got like 20 or 30 people that have done it for 40 to 50 years. And that's when you've got to go, holy shit. Like that is the history that's there. But I like it because the audiences are just great. They just are happy that they're out. They're happy that they're enjoying themselves. Yeah. And they're just really receptive. Compared to UK audiences where it's like bleeding. It's like, it's trying to make a rock bleed. It's just like, oh my God, can you just smile? Manchester can be all right with like younger crowds and stuff. I would say Liverpool is pretty good when it comes to stuff. But when it comes to Scotland, fucking hell, like Aberdeen, for example, worst. I hate doing Aberdeen. Like I every now and again I'm roped into doing it because like my family and my sister-in-law's family, like they love coming to see it, and they're like, they don't really get to go outside of Aberdeenshire, so they're like, Aberdeen's the closest place, can you get a gig and then we'll all come? But Aberdeen is just death. It's just awful. And that's why I say there's no soul, because I also had the worst gig there as well, which was I did a Christmas party for the Aberdeen police force.
Police officers famous for their sense of humor.
So I was booked
did they arrest you?
I was booked. Oh no, they were all drinking and on coke. So like, you know, it was crazy. And there was like murder police at the bar, like, you know, detectives and stuff, but yeah, murder police, because essentially I could see this guy drinking whiskey neat, not looking at me on the stage, and just continuing, not even talking to anyone. And I was like, he's seen some terrible things. And yeah, they're all hyped up. They're all on coke. And it's just like, this is mental. And I was booked for 15. I don't know how I did it, but I did 13 minutes to not just silence, but like booing and like horrible, just like they just sat through it. And then I came off, and the host, Liam Withnell, he turned around and went, "Oh my God, guys, you didn't even give the boy a chance." Like, it was just horrendous. And my dad was there to pick me up. He didn't watch the show, thankfully. And he was like, hey, will we stick around? It was like, oh no, we're not sticking around. We need to go now. And he was like, was it that bad? I went, oh yes, it was, but I still got paid. So
yeah,
the promoter felt so sorry for me. He was like, I will pay you the full amount. Like, don't worry about how much time you did. Like, so yeah.
And after a show like that, do you get into the, oh, I need to quit, I'm not doing this again, this is the worst?
No, this was too far into it. Like, I've been, at this point, I've been doing comedy for like, something like 6-7 years. So to experience that, I now realize that at that time, my act wasn't good. I wasn't confident with what I was doing. And I think that was when I started to consider, should I do something really different? And that's when Linda came about.
Okay. And that makes me wonder about your first gig. Do you remember what you were doing on stage at that school thing?
Yeah. So I did a whole bit about, there was an advert back in the day, which was Mr. T advertising Snickers. And it was ludicrous in the first place, but it was a funny advert. And it was essentially me basically saying, have you all seen the advert, the TV advert with Mr. T promoting Snickers? Have you all seen it? And then there's like people actually lit up as I explained that. And I was like, it's just like people playing football like on a pitch, and one of them pretends to be injured. It's like, I've hurt my knee, oh no. And then out of nowhere, a tank comes through a fence onto the pitch. Mr. T pops out. This was a real advert. Like, Mr. T pops out, it was like, "Get up, fool, you ain't hurt," and throws the Snickers at him. And I was like, what is going on? It's like, what I want to see is, Mr. T doing insurance adverts. And so I just then went into explaining that. And so it was so simple and a ludicrous concept, really, really stand up.
Mr. T doing other things.
Yeah, it was Mr. T kind of like...
that he shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, it's like, and he walks in and he throws a stapler at him, and it's like, get some shorts. It's like, I just thought it was funny. And yeah, that got me through. They were like, yeah, obviously now quite problematic that I was doing like Mr. T's black voice, but but it was
Black voice.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think he just has a voice.
No, it's
The
like
voice is colored?
yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's a deep. It's almost like Barry White. It's like yeah.
Okay, that's a great premise. Like, yeah, Mr. T doing
Doing different things.
things that Mr. T shouldn't be doing.
It's so not what I do now.
No.
But it's like, it was such an easy way. And because I was cute and adorable and I was 15.
Yeah, make it even funnier. You're doing a
yeah.
Mr. T impression.
Oh, yeah. No, but it was, I think people were, they were so surprised that I was able to do the voice.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, what is he, where is this going? And then I think it was like, you ain't hurt. And I think the whole place erupted because they went, that's exactly how he said. It wasn't like a...
That shouldn't be coming from this guy.
This should not be coming from this tiny little white boy. It was, but yeah, it was nice. Yeah.
Cool. And today you're doing, as I understand, mainly character.
Yeah, I kind of have stopped doing my own stand-up just because, honestly, the last year has been pretty amazing in so many ways and then awful. So like my dad was diagnosed with bowel cancer back in, I think it was probably around about March time. Because it was my brother's wedding and it was a really joyous occasion, but the whole thing had a bit of a cloud over it because every single person was coming up to me and saying, your dad doesn't look well. He's not, like, he's just lost so much weight. He doesn't look happy. You know, he looks like he's in pain. And so we, after the wedding, we were just like, right, can we convince you to go to the doctor, please? He'd never gone to the doctor, and eventually went to the doctor, got his first ever prescription.
Oh, wow.
He was 67 years old, and he'd never had any medicine, any prescription.
Painkiller?
He had like paracetamol and stuff, but he'd buy that. But yeah, he had his thing, but he got diagnosed with bowel cancer, and at that point we weren't sure what was going to happen, if he was going to have treatments and things, and slowly but surely the doctor just kept coming back with worse news of like it's inoperable, so we can't operate on it because it's too close to this, and it's spread too much, and if we'd caught it earlier and all that kind of stuff. And then we don't think we can do radiation, and we don't think we can do chemotherapy. So that meant there was no treatment. And over the last kind of few months, it's just been getting worse and worse. And I've been dealing with, while coming over to Iceland and having wonderful experiences and doing these amazing gigs, that was the cloud that was just entirely over me. And it really does link with everything that I do, because he was supportive of me unconditionally. There was no conditions in which his support or love was ever changed. And so whenever I was struggling and whenever I wasn't making money and not getting on, and he was still there to support me. He was there like, hey, just keep going. Like, I believe in what you do. So even though I haven't achieved what I wanted to achieve and to show him before he passed away, every achievement I have from now will be down to how much he supported me and to kind of honor his memory. It's been it's just like the grieving process. I'm very much at the infancy of it. And it's really crazy when I lost him a while ago because he just had no energy. And when someone has no energy and you can't even sit down with them and do stuff, we couldn't watch TV together. That's how tired he was. So I lost him a while ago, but actually knowing that he's not there anymore is just I can't text him. I can't go, oh, I did this amazing thing. And he would always appreciate it when I told him I was doing stuff. And yeah, I think I'm lucky though, because of the fact that my my brother and my sister-in-law and her family have supported me massively in just being there during the sort of the really tough point when we were in hospital when he passed away. And it's myself, my brother, and my sister-in-law, and also my uncle and my auntie. We all watched his last breath, and to experience that and experience that week of watching my dad dying is something that I can only express so much, like to my friends and to family, because you can't really express it. It's so sad, and it was a really I was very glad I was there though, because I think I would have been very upset with myself if I'd maybe like chickened out. I think, but I was just there. I was there, and it was fucking hard.
At the hospital, or?
Yeah. So I was there for a whole week. So like, he was admitted to hospital, and then it took a week for him to pass away. It was horrible. Yeah. Like every now and again, just sleeping when I could, but it was just that looming, it's coming. Yeah.
Did you take any time off from doing gigs or anything like that afterwards?
So essentially, I took like a few days to sort of, I didn't process, I drank. I like sat with bottles of wine and I think I drank a bottle of whiskey as well. And I just sat and just was completely out of it. And I think I drank through the night, and Jonathan, like my brother and my sister-in-law, came in. They were like, "Oh Jesus," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." Like and he's like, "You have nothing to apologize for." And I think that was one of the biggest things of like, even when you mess up, and even when you're drunk and they're like, "No, it's fine. Like you're allowed that. You're allowed to process it however you want to process it." But I think I spent a few days in that house, which is horrible when it's an empty house and it's just yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I then was like, I need to go. I need to leave. And so I came to Iceland, and I then did a show in memory of my dad. It was already scheduled to be Alternative Assembly, and I was really excited to be able to come over and do it. Linda wore black, and it was talked about during the show. But I loved it. It was actually really cathartic for me, because having like 30 friends, I think it was around about 30 people turned up, and these were people that had met him, and that was wonderful to have them actually tell me stories about when he visited to Iceland for a week. And he, my dad was asking the same questions, why Iceland? Why do you keep going? And I said, well, just come over.
When was he here?
He came here probably 2019. Yeah, probably. Okay. Yeah, 2019. And he was like, I just like, come over.
The height of Secret Cellar.
Yeah, the height of Secret Cellar. And I did a spotlight show, which was essentially an hour of myself and then an hour with Linda. Did a 2-hour show with a break in the middle. And my dad got to see how much they appreciated what I did. And he was like, now I get it. Now I completely am, And it was amazing because he, my dad was a special guy. He wasn't just this dad who was supportive and all. He would sit and chat with people all the time. And if they didn't have the confidence in themselves, he would actually embolden their confidence. He would give them compliments. He would embolden their confidence. And it's being able to, he would watch their sets and go, oh yeah, I really liked how you did this. And because my dad had gone to the Fringe for like 10 years because I had, been doing that. And so he knew comedy just as well as I did. And so it was amazing when I would do something I was proud of and he would go, yeah, that's what you should be doing. And just keep doing that.
Yeah.
He never turned around and was like, oh, you need to start thinking about this. He would always encourage me to go back to acting because he's like, you are a good actor. But it was just never the right moment. But yeah, it was hearing the stories of my dad, also from like very old friends of his that he knew for like 40 years. And it was just stories I would go, that's kind of me. that's super me. Like that, I've got a million of those kinds of stories about myself that are happening in the last few years or are happening now. And I realize that when you're in your 20s and going into your 30s, you really do have to make memories, because I've seen my dad over the last sort of 15 years not really make new memories. He's made a couple of new ones, but he kind of gave up a little. And I think that was to do with a lot of things. And I think depression was a major part of that. So for me, getting my depression sorted out and my anxiety, I'm making memories every single day, and it's lovely.
How did you get that sorted out?
Antidepressants. So, and being able to talk to someone that was just, they understood where I was coming from, and just deconstruct some of my old like bad habits of like the spiraling and the going into a very much a shame place and hurting myself a lot of the time. And so now I don't feel that depression, don't feel that anxiety as intensely as I did. I'll have up days, bad day, down days, but often I'm feeling just great, and that is something that I'm going to try and hold on to. So it was just it's so annoying and very frustrating that I had sorted myself out, and then that was when I lost him, because that trauma has brought all that shit back into my head. But people have sort of said, give it a year. It won't be solved in a year. It will never be solved. But in a year's time, you'll just feel it a little less.
Yeah. It's something that your reality changes, and the grieving gets better with time, but it's never gone.
God, no.
Yeah. And okay, so you kind of you lost your father, and then you had to drink the pain away for a little bit.
Oh God, yeah. Like that is how Scottish people do it. It's like a crazy feeling, but I think his funeral and the subsequent drinking afterwards was one of the best nights I've ever had. Like just having family and friends and people I've known for years coming together in the celebration of my dad. And we had like a Ceilidh band, which is a very traditional Scottish sort of band that would play certain music, and having an entire like local bar filled with people singing Loch Lomond, while we're all like doing the Auld Lang Syne sort of running into the middle and running out. That is, definitely going to stay with me. And seeing my cousin, like Jennifer, who I hadn't seen in years, come over from France to pay respects to my dad, and my other cousin Fiona, who lives in Rome, and they're two very successful people doing wonderful things, and they loved my dad so much, and they had respect for this man. And I think he very much put down how important he was to a lot of people, and that for me is definitely a sign of depression. Mm-hmm. And so when his funeral was like 200 plus people, from his whole life came, and there was no seats left. People had to stand at the back and stuff, and I think it was mental, and I had to speak, and I think I had said to someone that the hardest thing I'll ever have to do is speak at my dad's funeral, and it came so quickly, and being able to say what I needed to say was really important to me. And then I sang a song as well. I sang Your Song by Elton John, and it wasn't his favorite song or anything, but just the lyrics connected with how I felt about him. And I sang it, and afterwards was like, fucking hell, boy, you didn't know you had a voice. And it's like, but it was because it just felt right. And I think I was proud of myself to be able to do that. But I was also very proud of my brother to be able to speak and as well, and get across how he felt. And
I imagine it helped your grieving to be able to have this other home that you could go to, and it's out of any circumstances.
So disconnected from
Yeah.
it was amazing. Like
Yeah.
this has become very much a home, and it's it's like I don't want it to be my home that I'm living here all the time, and then I'm missing out on other things that are happening in the world. It's like, no, I want it to be just a part of my life. You know, I come back and I appreciate seeing everyone, and but I really, really love. I just really love traveling. I love seeing the world, and I think that definitely came from my dad. We would go on holidays and go to different places, and whenever we found something interesting, he would just double down on it. So yeah,
That's one of the advantages of being a comedian. If you're doing well enough, is that it lends itself to traveling a lot. So you can go, you can see a lot of new places, new faces.
Yeah.
And you got involved with the Reykjavik Fringe also.
Yes.
Have you done anything in the Reykjavik Fringe before?
Yeah, so I've performed at every Reykjavik Fringe. There's been, I think the first one was 2017, I think it was.
Okay.
So it was 2017 until 2022 this year. And so it's been 5 years, and it's been the same committee. And now I've been asked, and I was appointed to be taking over from Nana, who was the festival director previously. And I was able, I took it on because I could see the potential of what the Reykjavik Fringe could be. I realised there was a lot of problems and a lot of issues that needed to be sorted out with the organisation and with how it was being run. But also there was all the positives. If it was all negatives, I wouldn't have taken it on. I would have gone, find someone else to fucking do this. But it was actually the fact that the Reykjavik Fringe has been the most enjoyable fringe I've done. I've done the Edinburgh Fringe. It's not enjoyable. It's crazy. It's mental. You'll have the best fucking gigs in the world, and you'll have the worst gigs in the world. You'll have the worst moments in your life. You'll have the best moments in your life. But it's really bipolar. It's really up and down, just everywhere. But the Reykjavik Fringe was nothing but lovely memories. And that's because they built a community about really respecting the artists as much as they could, paying them well, not charging them a huge amount, especially local acts who just want to perform. You know, they don't want to make a load of money. So I find it interesting taking over now because I want to keep all of that, but build it into something that's much bigger and something that tourists and locals know about, because right now most locals don't know about it. And so I want to get the visibility up to the level that Iceland Airwaves is. So that's kind of our unofficial competitor, but we're at two very different times of the year, so we're not really competing against each other, but we would like to show that we can make it just as big as that. And it's a sleeping giant when it comes to a festival. Fringes really are. Fringes are like, you can make them into anything you want.
I don't think most people have heard of Fringe like in general.
Yeah, no, it's
an international like performance art festival thing.
Yes, and like, so you've got the Edinburgh Fringe, which is the most...
Is that the original one?
Yes, so that's the original one that was started in, I think it was 1947, I think it was. So it's after the war.
Okay, super old.
Yeah, after the war, it was people were putting a lot of money into arts because they wanted to cheer people up after horrendous times. And one of the things is they put on an international arts festival called the Edinburgh International Arts Festival, and they invited like a very select group of people, and then there was another like 20 other groups that wanted to join it, and they said no, you can't join it because we've got these like 6 groups that are going to do it, so you're not invited. And they went, well, we've traveled here, we want to be part of it. So what they did was they set up another festival surrounding that festival called the Edinburgh Fringe.
Oh, because it was the fringe.
It was the fringe of the, yeah. So that's where it came from, of basically the outsiders who were not invited, that were not the ones that were the big shots. They weren't the ones who were considered to be worthy. They made their own festival, and now the fringes way bigger than the International Arts Festival. It's
That's
tiny.
so cool. That's a really cool story.
It's a really cool story, and But the thing is, the Edinburgh Fringe has lost, in my opinion, has very much lost its way. It's become super corrupt, like corporate, quite corrupt in certain ways. But what it really is it fucks over artists. There's only really a couple of venues that don't do it now, like don't fuck over their artists, and one of them's Monkey Barrel Comedy, and I used to work there. Fired twice from Monkey Barrel Comedy for my problems. However, Monkey Barrel Comedy actually don't take thousands of pounds from artists. They take a very small amount, and they give them fantastic venues in a really good location and really sell their show. And so artists walk away with money in their pocket. But the rest of the Fringe, you'd be lucky to break even for the month. You're losing money, and that's mental. To be doing it during a time when, especially in Britain, is austerity, the living crisis, like everything is just so bad right now in Britain and is bleak.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who think that that artists should just perform for free.
It's mental, but this is the thing of like. There's a part of it, there's a real rebellion that's happening at the Edinburgh Fringe, which is these venues are trying to not fuck over their artists. That's what I want to take and put it here in Reykjavik. And but they have been doing that. They haven't been fucking over their artists. They've just not had enough marketing and enough visibility for the festival. That's where I come in and I go, right.
I think you're right about that.
So, yeah.
I know for a fact that they have great shows because I know a lot of the people performing.
Yeah.
But the marketing could be done better.
So we've brought on a marketing director who is absolutely phenomenal, and she's going to be essentially taking us through how we actually build this into a sustainable and financially independent festival.
Yeah.
I don't want to be relying on other people's money. Other people's money should be an extra, but this festival should be able to look after itself, and to do so, she's been able to put a plan together that I'm really excited about. Because I know how to creatively put together the best Fringe you can imagine, because I know who to contact, I know who to encourage, I know how to put on a good artistic festival, but I don't know how to sell it. So I'm entrusting a lot of. I'm trusting a lot of people to be able to help me out. And I think one of the biggest things, so like applications open tomorrow, actually.
Okay, that's what was going to be my next question.
Absolutely. They open 21st, and the open call will be until the 6th of January. You can apply it's through the Nordic Fringe Network, so you can apply up to 7 different festivals all around the Nordic region. If you just want to apply to Reykjavik, you can just click Reykjavik and that's fine. But there are many amazing festivals that you can look up in your own time, but I am not running that, so I don't give a shit. So look up, if you want to look at different ones. I've really had a lovely time in Gothenburg. Really nice Fringe that's run by very nice people over there. So, yeah.
I want to do my first Fringe next year.
Nice.
And applications open tomorrow, you say?
Yes.
And you have a application form?
Yeah. So the whole idea is we're going to be getting a lot more venues next year. So I've already confirmed about, I think it's 7 or 8 venues that we have, and they're very specific for different genres and things. But I will be encouraging a lot of comedians, not even just local acts but international acts, to do like double handers, like double bill. So you do like 30 minutes and another person does 30 minutes, or you do 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. The great example of that is Humble, which was Mauricio, Hugh and Arnor. That show was perfect because they did their 20 minutes of their best stuff, and they brought in a lot more people because it was the 3 of them selling it. But when people were doing stuff solo-wise, and they weren't ready to do a solo show, it was not getting the amount of people in, and the quality was not high enough. So I'm going to be encouraging comics to basically do double bills, because there'll also be showcases at night. which is actually going to be an additional thing that's never been done before. We're going to have late night showcases either at Hura, Gurkarin, and Fredriksson's, which is just around here. And they're going to be going from around about 10 o'clock until 1 in the morning, and at the weekend until 3 in the morning. So the shows, when people want a place to go and drink and socialize, they go to the shows. So they can chat with people and stuff, while also you have performers from all around the Fringe doing like a 5-10 minute set, while Linda's at the middle in the middle hosting it. So yeah,
I was thinking about doing 45 minutes, but now that you're saying that,
but you can very much apply a 45.
Not that set on it.
What you can do is, if you're wanting to do 45, get someone to do the first 15.
Yeah,
it's trying to market it in a way that we can get more people just interested. It's like, oh, there's a second person on the bill. Fantastic. Well, they can do this part of the marketing. I'm going to be making it very clear to especially the local comics. It's a lot of work putting on a Fringe show. It's going to be harder to get your show into the Fringe now, because of the fact that we want to be encouraging quality stuff. But we will give you a space, we'll give you a venue, but you need to be bringing people in. The best way of doing that is doing a 2 or 3 hander. So it's trying to just market it in a different way that way. And but anyone who wants to apply with an hour or 45 minutes, I'm still willing to, like, it's not like you'll get rejected. It's more like we'll have a conversation about it. It's, I'll be very much part of, like, the application process will be a very, like, especially people I know, I will, like, sit down with them and go, hey, this is really good. I really like this, but can we change this, or can we, and so that I'm not rejecting local acts. I'm encouraging them to find something that will work for their best interests, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And from Fringe last year, I know some comedians who I know for a fact are good. They could do a good show. Yeah. And I know other ones who I know are good. I know comedians who are good comedians, and they didn't have a great experience at the Fringe.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to them about it, but maybe they didn't have a lot of people there or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so there's been a lot of, it's because of the lack of just general marketing for the festival. It meant that some of the comedians had half-empty rooms when they had really pushed their show. They hadn't been lazy.
Yeah.
Like I saw Nick Jameson. He had pushed his show so hard, and on the first night sold out. Amazing. The second time, his second show was half-empty, and I was pissed off. And I really was, because he had a phenomenal show. And so, but then also you had experiences of just like, that's not fair to then blame the artist on that, because it was, most of the audience were their friends. So they had packed out the place with their friends, but there was no tourists. There was no people from press. There was, it was, so, but there was a lot of stuff going on during the organization of the last Fringe that I'm now privy to, and I now understand why all of that happened. It was quite a toxic work environment that was happening. And that is one of the reasons I was brought on, to be able to tell certain people to fuck off. So that is, but that is the truth of it. It's being able to take over certain things and being able to create a much more positive environment around it. I'm not wanting to put on the same Fringe. I want to put on something that benefits the local area, the local artists, and I want the shows to match the venues. So what's the point of putting a comic who doesn't, maybe is doing their first 45 minutes, don't put them in a massive venue where they feel anxiety or panic about, I'm not going to fill it. Put them in a smaller venue, and then, whoever turns up, they have a wonderful time. So it's like that's what the Fringe is all about, the Edinburgh Fringe anyway. So it's like, why are we not doing it that way? So it's questioning a lot of things, changing up a few things, but what I really want to stress is that the community aspect of us trying to build a positive environment around it, that's not going away. That's staying.
I was not directly a part of the Fringe last year, but a lot of my friends in comedy were doing their shows, and from the outside, I could kind of see that marketing was approached in many different ways, and there were some comics who like stood out, where I would notice the marketing stuff that they were doing, especially Dan Nava.
Yes.
I think he had this little flyer which was like a passport. Genius! It was just genius, because that's what he's talking about, being an immigrant.
So that's essentially like really good marketing stuff, but that's also super fringe. Like Edinburgh Fringe, it's all about that. You've got to make your marketing different and interesting, because if you're just doing the same like shitty flyer that everyone does, no one's going to come see it. Flyering is going to become a bit bigger this coming year, because essentially we're going to have street teams of like people actually handing out brochures or trying to get people into the venue, and just like there was none of that, and we're gonna have signs outside the venues and stuff, just little things like that has been done at the Edinburgh Fringe for decades, and it works. It's as simple as a dumb tourist walking down the street. They see a sign, what the hell's that? They start asking questions. They're like, what's this? And you just have someone to be able to explain it to them right there and then.
Yeah.
That's a simple, it's been done for so long, and it can easily be done in Reykjavik. Yes, flyering is not a big thing here, but it's not about the flyering. It's about just getting people to know about it. That's all.
I'm really glad I didn't do the Fringe last year, because I wouldn't have gone into it knowing how like that you can have the best show in the world, but if you're not doing anything with marketing, you won't have anybody there.
Oh no, but this
you need to nail the marketing.
And this is what we have to like. We'll also be putting together like a sort of a package of actually explaining to people like, this is the best way to sell this show. This is the best way of getting people in the door. But we will be selling the show in this way, and we will be doing this for the festival. We will not be advertising individual shows, but we will give you opportunities to basically showcase who you are. The Monday and Tuesday, so the 26th and the 27th. So the dates are the 26th of June to the 2nd of July, because I'm sick of people asking me, so I'm going to tell it on everything that I can. But the Monday, Tuesday is going to be like meet and greets. We're going to have a pub crawl, which we are stealing from Gothenburg. I'm very much looking forward to that. But we're also going to be doing like opening parties and showcases. So everyone's going to have a chance to be able to showcase their material or their act or their show, so that they can get people in the door for the Wednesday to Sunday, which will be the show days. Also, you'll have the late night showcases. And so I'm excited to be able to give people the opportunity to show off, because that is what the Edinburgh Fringe is about as well. Yeah.
Nice. I had an idea a while ago, because I was thinking about these kinds of festivals, and I was thinking there must be comedy festivals specifically, there must be. And I was thinking, what would be the funniest place to do a big comedy festival? The Faroe Islands.
Yeah.
So eventually, I want to try and do something there. Well,
I'm happy to help, because even just giving you sort of advice of like how to run it or who to contact, because if you were able to like do it in conjunction with either the Reykjavik Fringe or something, it means that people are already in Iceland, or or if they're doing gigs for me, it means they just pop up. There's direct flights from Iceland to the Faroe Islands and stuff, and so they can just jump on a flight and do a festival in Faroe Islands. But yeah, I think that would sound amazing.
In my experience, comedians are very eager to go to the Faroe Islands.
Yeah, and I think when they realize like everything's closed. Like, I'm like, Jesus Christ. But I really would love to go to Faroe Islands, but I think it's possible. All you have to do is just get, like, I would say, a stage that basically you could put on some really big comedians. Mm-hmm. And yeah, if they're in Reykjavik already, they can just jump over. So yeah.
And you said it, Fringe is at the end of June, the beginning of July?
Yes, so it's the 26th of June, going into the 2nd of July, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. I got to put that in my calendar.
Yes.
Well, it's been lovely chatting with you today.
Yeah, absolutely.
how serious do you think we've been today?
Oh, pretty serious. Talked about my dead dad, so it gets pretty.
Yeah, I'd say this is probably the most serious.
Oh yeah,
we were silly in some parts.
absolutely. But this is the thing. Like I knew it was coming up, but the thing is, it's like I've been processing it. I even though people have been worried about me from time to time, it's like Andrew's very drunk right now, and it's like, yeah, but you don't see me all the other times that I'm sober and just dealing with it. It's I have had a lot of time to process it, so it's it's been serious, but
thank you for finally making this a serious podcast. I've been struggling for so long. Thank you for watching. Until next time.
Yeah.